But there's a new book by Ian O'Connor, who's a great, great author. Highly recommend. I reached out to Ian. Hopefully we can have him on the show. Would love to discuss this book with him. But there's this book. I was able to get it about a week before it came out and was released to the public. It's called Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. And it was a very well-written book. It interviewed, I think, over 200 people. And kind of the primary interview, the folks that were interviewed were Aaron Rodgers, and his parents, Ed Rodgers and Darla Rodgers. They seem to be kind of the main characters of this book. Ian O'Connor did interview Aaron earlier this year. He interviewed his parents. He interviewed a lot of folks, teammates, coaches, other competitors. I mean, basically everybody integral to the Aaron Rodgers story, with few exceptions, Ian O'Connor was able to discuss for this book, which gives it all the more credibility. And kind of my takeaways from it were, Aaron has always been from day one. And by the way, I got nothing against this because a lot of my favorite athletes are this way. You screw up, Aaron's going to let you know about it. That's kind of his form, or the way he sees it in terms of being a leader. Going back to his days in JUCO, at Cal, with the Green Bay Packers, and certainly with the New York Jets, that's kind of his MO. If Aaron feels like he's done his job and you didn't, he's going to let you hear about it. Listen, we romanticize Michael Jordan. We give Tom Brady credit. Other athletes who have chosen that form. Jimmy Butler's kind of this way in the NBA. We've seen a lot of guys go this route. Kobe Bryant, nothing wrong with that. And so the fact, like, and a lot of your, especially in terms of leadership, again, I'm a believer that leadership, by and large, is something you kind of have or you don't, to varying degrees. This was Aaron's form of it. And for better or for worse. And sometimes it really did go both ways. So that was fascinating to think about. Also, so folks have debated, my God, how did Aaron fall in the 2005 draft? Aaron, along with Aaron from Cal, Alex Smith from Utah. It was the battle. Who's going to be the first pick in 2005 from the San Francisco 49ers, who, by the way, was Aaron's favorite team growing up. He's a Bay Area kid. And not only do the Niners choose Alex Smith, but Aaron Rodgers, who was in the discussion to be the first pick in that draft, plummets to 24th. How does that happen? When you consider the fact that, according to this book, there were three other teams, along with San Francisco, in the top 5 in needed quarterbacks: the Cleveland Browns, Miami Dolphins, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. None of them took Aaron. A big reason, at least the way I read it, is Aaron is a very confident guy, bordering on cocky to a certain degree, although I'm a believer that if you talk a big game and back it up, I don't count that as cocky. I count cocky as, you can't back up anything that you're saying, like, shut up. Aaron was not shy to tell you how good he thought he was, and a lot of coaches and franchises were a little bit threatened by that, and they clearly wrongly passed on him. So that's that. Also, after he was drafted by the Packers, he was hazed by Brett Favre. There's no other way to put it. He was hazed by Brett Favre. There was one anecdote about how Aaron Rodgers in minicamp or during training camp would go up to Brett and ask him questions. Ask Brett Favre what he saw. And Brett would say, "Well, you're the first rounder. What do you think? You tell me." So Brett was not only not in the business of mentoring Aaron, he's kind of a jerk to Aaron. He kind of did, or he kind of was. I mean, there was another anecdote about how Brett Favre had him and other players on the team signed Aaron Rodgers' helmet. They fooled Aaron that it was going to charity. It was just a random helmet. They're going to sign it. Turns out Aaron Rodgers puts his helmet on, and there's black Sharpie signatures on it. He's like, "What the heck just happened?" Brett Favre orchestrated that. And so he was, and it's one thing that I've said over the years. I haven't talked about Brett Favre a ton because he retired 10 years before I started my show, or about 10 years before I started my show. But as critical as I've been of Aaron, I genuinely, and I could be wrong on this, I don't think Aaron is a bad human being. I don't think he's somebody who, in any way, shape, or form, is seeking to do harm to people. I could be wrong on that, but that's never been. I've criticized Aaron for his narcissism. I've criticized Aaron for misleading the media, which I'll get into later, in my synopsis of this of this book, or at least my reaction to the book. But as much as I criticize Aaron, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Brett Favre was way worse. Infinitely worse than Aaron. Brett, I do think I can say pretty confidently, Brett's not the greatest guy in the world. He's really not. We don't have to relitigate his issues, but there was a situation when he was with the Jets that we won't talk about. We understand that there were some substance abuse problems. There was, again, just talked about how he treated Aaron Rodgers. He was not receptive whatsoever to coaching. Teammates didn't always love him. He held the Packers hostage. We talk about Aaron held the Packers hostage. Favre was actually worse. Favre, once he was finally done with Green Bay, I tried to come back, as we all know, in 2008. Aaron, to his credit, has never been like, actually, I want to come back to the Packers, even though now that was a different situation. He was traded. Favre was traded, but this is a different situation. He had retired. But, and by the way, with Brett Favre, the whole situation that happened a few years ago, legally, Brett's not the great. Brett has put on this, good old country boy, the everyman. Don't believe any of that. I think most people have kind of seen through that facade. Brett's not the greatest guy in the world. Just put it that way. Rodgers I've been critical of. I don't think Aaron's a bad person. I don't. Next thing I took from this, Rodgers and McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy, who were together, quarterback coach combo. Well, in the time Aaron was a starter, they were together about 10 and a half years. In totality, about 12 and a half years. They worked. They obviously won a Super Bowl. They did something right. But that was always a football relationship. And McCarthy and Rodgers will tell you this day, they have mutual respect for each other. I mean, when Mike McCarthy was with the Cowboys, or he's with the Cowboys now, but when he coached his first game at Lambeau as the opposing coach, Fox, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi reported that McCarthy and Rodgers spoke in like a private room and kind of had like a heart-to-heart conversation. We're catching up. So their relationship, by and large, seems to be on pretty good terms, which is great. But as a football relationship, they had a hard expiration date. That was never going to be, and it's a kind of a miracle it lasted as long as it did. I mean, McCarthy, by nature, tends to be, especially in tight games, a very, very conservative play caller. I mean, just look at the 2014 NFC Championship game against Seattle as a prime example. Green Bay played it safe. Their defense played awesome until like literally the final 2 minutes. Seattle made a ridiculous comeback, won the game in overtime. Aaron split with his family in 2014. So this book was, we know Aaron has had a strained relationship with his parents and his family for a while. And this book did a really good job painting how that kind of came to be. So Aaron has had a list of celebrity girlfriends, Shailene Woodley, Danica Patrick, but obviously he dated Olivia Munn for a while in the mid-2000s. And that's kind of what led to the split. There was an anecdote about how before an early December game, the Packers in 2014, that was the midst of an MVP season for Aaron. The Packers played the Bills at Lambeau. The night before, Aaron's parents, Ed and Darla, met with, I think there were some other family friends involved, but met up with Aaron and Olivia Munn. And the next day, game day, Aaron played by far his worst game of the season. He was awful against the Bills. Well, the next game the Packers played in Tampa, it was around Christmas time, and the family had plans to travel to Tampa Bay to be there. They were like going to go to Disney World and then go to the game and whatnot. And Olivia Munn called the family, I guess, saying that they had distracted Aaron before the last game and called them out and said, like, we don't want you here, yada, yada, yada. And Ed and again, listen, who knows what was said? Ed Rodgers, Aaron's dad, said I didn't say anything disrespectful towards her. Basically, what I said is, what Ed said is, hey, we're his parents. We've been in his life a lot longer than you have. And Aaron Rodgers proceeded to send an email to his parents saying, back off my girlfriend. And that kind of is what led to the dissolvement of their relationship. Now, the good news is early in the book, it talked about how Aaron and his dad met up at a golf tournament about a year ago and shared a nice moment. So, and Aaron talked about with Ian O'Connor, he hopes that their relationship can come to a good phase, to a good point, but that the time isn't quite there. So here's hoping that they're able to improve their relationship. Here's what I thought was fascinating, because this is getting more to modern Aaron Rodgers. So we know sort of this I don't want to say new Aaron, but this Taylor Swift has her eras. This Aaron Rodgers era now that we're experiencing right now, kind of the conspiracy theorist guy who's still very productive but declining a little bit as a football player and has become a distraction for the Packers and now the Jets. This is very fascinating to me. Aaron Rodgers in the book talks about this, isn't a guy who admits he's wrong very much. But he told Ian O'Connor, had he been given the opportunity to redo his "I'm immunized" press conference, he would. And basically, he said he would have talked about how I didn't get the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, because I'm allergic to the ingredients in the Johnson & Johnson shot and whatever. And he sort of talked about how, hey, the blowback still would have been. This is the one thing that I've consistently said about Aaron Rodgers when it comes to his vaccine stance, which I think has turned, Ian O'Connor talked about, it kind of turned the page on how a lot of folks view him, positively or negatively. The one misnomer that I think Aaron believes to his core, his defenders and supporters and fans believe to their core, is that because he wasn't vaccinated, that's why people turn on him. That's not true. I will go to my grave saying this. That is not why folks turn on Aaron Rodgers. It's not. Kirk Cousins said he wasn't vaccinated. Lamar Jackson, I don't know if he ever confirmed it, but Lamar Jackson, God bless him. Love the guy, but man, he gets sick a lot. I don't know what's going on there. I'm almost certain Lamar Jackson did not get vaccinated. Carson Wentz did not get vaccinated. Cole Beasley did his interesting press conference. He didn't get. There's a lot of players in the NFL that did not get the COVID-19 vaccine. We love Kirk Cousins. Kirk's a great guy. I'm the biggest Lamar Jackson fan ever. I love Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of guys that didn't get the vaccine. People love across the board, and they should. A lot of these guys are great dudes. I may not necessarily agree with their position not to get vaccinated, especially given the circumstances at the time. I don't dislike them as humans. It was how Aaron went about it. It was the fact that in August, hey, I'm immunized. Don't judge anybody who's got the vaccine. Don't judge anybody who doesn't get the vaccine. I'm immunized. And we come to find out in early November, when he tests positive, he actually didn't get vaccinated. He wasn't complying with the NFL's rules and regulations, and obviously didn't play that next game for the Packers against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was actually Jordan Love's first start. It was that he misled the media and fans. As the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, one of the most prominent positions in sports, there's a level, and quarterbacks in general, there's a level of not only responsibility, but as I talked about earlier with Shedeur Sanders, a level of maturity, a level of, conducting yourself in a way that is, represents your organization as exemplary. And Aaron objectively did not do that. He misled folks. Some could say he actually lied about his status when he could have just went the Kirk Cousins route. Yeah, I'm not getting the vaccine. It's a choice I'm making for my own body. Yeah, would Aaron gotten pushback and criticism? Of course he would have. He would have absolutely gotten criticism. Does it linger to 2024? No, it doesn't, because it didn't linger for Kirk, didn't linger for other guys. So that is the misnomer about the Aaron Rodgers vaccine thing that I really does bother me a little bit. You just don't like him because no, that's not true. It's how he approached it relative to how other NFL players approached it. Also, I knew Aaron was a conspiracy theorist. I didn't know he was in this deep of a rabbit hole. The book talks about he's entertained the following: that the COVID-19 vaccine was, quote, experimental gene therapy that changes your DNA. Also, and we heard this from Deshaun Kaiser about 2 years ago, that 9/11 was an inside job, and that immigrants, this is absurd, that immigrants who joined the military could turn on America and cause a national security threat. Yeah, immigrants have never served in the United States military, ever. That's an absurd conspiracy. He also believes he believes in theories involving the moon landing, inner Earth, and reptile people. Take that for what you will. So my takeaway from the book, I read things in the book that I already knew about Aaron. I read things that I did not know about Aaron. I highly recommend it again. It's Ian O'Connor. I, again, reached out to him. I'd love to have him on the show. But Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. It's available wherever books are sold. Highly, highly recommend it. Read it while I was on vacation last week. It was very compelling. Shout out to Ian O'Connor. Did a great job. And by the way, shout out to Aaron Rodgers and everyone else who did interviews for this. That, this is... People are going to feel one way or the other about the accounts that are in this book, and there are other that I didn't have time to get into, but Aaron's a complicated dude. Aaron is a guy who I fundamentally disagree with many of his stances, mostly in regards to his conspiracy theories, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he's undoubtedly one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks ever. He's got the second most MVPs ever to Peyton Manning. He's one of the most gifted throwers of the football ever. He won a Super Bowl. Now, have I had criticism of Aaron in regards to his postseason shortcomings? No question about it. We won't relitigate those today, but I have. But I did, and I give Ian O'Connor props for this. I give Aaron and his family and everyone else who was interviewed for the book props for this. I feel like I know Aaron, not know him a ton, but I feel like I know Aaron a little bit better now than I did previously. And for that, then that means it's a good book. Definitely check it out. Out of the Darkness, The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers. That's a New York Times bestseller. Jeff Bryson, you going to get into that Into the Darkness book about Aaron Rodgers? Yeah, no question. Again, highly recommend it. Fantastic read. Feels like the book on Aaron. We've sort of been waiting on it for a while, and if that is, if that's something you were looking forward to, I think this will satisfy you, more than satisfy you. John said earlier, tune in at the right. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.